Hello again, everybody.
Hello.
All right, before we start getting into the discussion, just want to introduce a couple of people. We've got a couple of counterparts and key roles in the breakout. Myself as facilitator, Sam Williams, again, is our lead from the Delegate Council Steering Committee. We've got other Delegate Council Steering Committee members as well. Lori Moore, she is going to serve as our scribe. That role also means that she will report out when we rejoin the full group in about 40 minutes. And we have Tania Kuntz, who is monitoring the chat. So your role as a delegate, it's an important one. It's going to require the effective kind of receipt and dissemination of information to your organization. It's one that also allows you to proactively access and communicate with the entire delegate network through the use of online communities. So we're going to engage in activities throughout the breakout session to help kind of define your role, explain your role, and then we'll provide opportunities for Q&A. And to start, we've got another few polling questions that we are going to begin this breakout. So we'll launch into the first poll for this session. Excellent. You're all on the right track.
That was a trick question, right?
Well, I hope not. I hope it wasn't a trick question, but I mean, this is a good example of something. An event is something that you can broadcast in a number of different channels, and it's something that we want to know about. So obviously, there's the events calendar that you can submit on the NGS website through your organizational account administrator. The Organization Leaders Forum is the Facebook group, and it's certainly appropriate to share on that forum as well. And then the upcoming Higher Logic membership communities. So any questions about how to share events or why we want to know when your organization is having events? Okay.
I just real quick, it used to be that the genealogy events calendar was open to anyone to upload information, and then that changed. And we had a considerable amount of confusion and problems switching that over, because I'm publicity director, and I usually did that, but I was then cut off, and I have to go through our president to access that account now. So quite frankly, we haven't been posting there.
Okay.
So it would be great if that could be a little easier to access, but I don't know how, the whole reasoning behind it, I guess, was because they didn't want just everybody to be able to post. I don't know. Anyway, that was just a concern.
Yeah, so so your president then would be the one who is defined on the back end as your account administrator.
That's correct. Yeah, okay. But she doesn't post.
Got it. Okay. Well, I think there's a couple of there's the logic behind it is a couple fold, I guess. One is, yeah, just like you said, wanting to funnel that kind of stuff through one individual potentially, so we don't have multiple postings for the same event. I also think there is a need to kind of establish what that account administrator's role is, and how it's different than the delegates. But that's a good takeaway. I mean, the intention isn't to prevent information from being shared or establish a barrier to that kind of role. So that's something I've written down. We want to make sure that we're kind of being sensitive to both.
If I could, this is Matt. Just as additional background,
part of the challenge in opening up multiple data points, multiple people within each organization to do that stuff is the data that we brought over as part of the merger wasn't in great shape. So we are slowly going to expand access into the NGS system for leaders within the organizations. Our primary two objectives in this first year are an account administrator who deals with your billing and receiving your services and benefits, and the delegate. As we get those two pieces of data cleaned up, and quite frankly, we only have 150 delegates out of 400 some organizations named at this point. We'll start adding from there. But there's a lot of work to be done.
Thank you, Matt. Before we go on to the next poll question, Eileen, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I wondered if there's a job description for the account administrator that would help us inform that person what their duties and responsibilities would be.
Yes, it's right on the NGS website.
Thank you.
I just kind of wanted to say that some of us are talking in the chat about this. I just wondered if you are able to see. Laura's not the only one with the exact same issue. We have not been posting for the same reason. Our president is not involved in publicity. That's my role.
Okay.
Yes, we do see it in the chat. And I think it was helpful that Matt also shared that access will be expanding. And so over time, you will be able to post until we get through this transition. So thank you for sharing your perspectives. Oh, Eric does have a question. So is it possible to have a sign-in for organization? Yeah, so I think that goes to what Matt was saying about broadening up and opening up access too. Good points.
Okay, any other questions or commentary before we move on to the next poll question?
I see a hand is raised.
I'll take it down.
Is the Facebook group similar? Is that something that anybody can join, or it's for the delegates or for the account administrator? I wasn't aware that you had one.
Facebook group, I believe, is not restricted to particular roles within organizations. So that's a group that you can join. Several from your organization can join.
That's correct.
The Higher Logic membership for the communities, is that something that's going to be rolled out in an email will be sent to the delegates?
That will probably, well, there's some different opportunities for configurations, community configurations within Higher Logic. So that I think will be partially informed by the conversations we're going to have today and when Higher Logic as a platform gets rolled out later this summer. Okay. Okay, let's go ahead and move to the next poll, please.
What do y'all think? I also kind of feel like we're taking a quiz, but we're all getting to see each other's answers. So it's like we're like looking at the person next to us. And yes, it would be, D would be nice, wouldn't it? For everybody, not just for a couple select places.
So yes, the preferred answer is A through C. Obviously, communication is a two-way street. So the information coming out of from NGS will be broadcast regularly, will be transparent, and that kind of reinforces your role as the delegate to be the recipient of that information and the mouthpiece back to your organization. And we'll develop kind of regular mechanisms so you can get used to receiving information in a format that then you can translate to back to your organizations. Any questions about what to expect, how to expect it? And some of this acclimation will happen kind of in real time. So as your role gets clarified and as the kind of staff counterparts get clarified, we'll talk more later about, you know, the different conduits to reach out to NGS and kind of what will be coming from NGS to you.
Will you be distributing things through email, or do we need to go to the website?
I think it'll be a combination of probably both. However, you'll get direct communication when there's something kind of critically important for you to communicate back to your organizations. Email being kind of the most fluid communication vehicle for us. Okay. Next poll, please.
I'm going to start predicting the answers.
It would be nice to have. That's true. But again, this is, you guys are getting good. You guys are getting good at answering the questions. This establishes again some of the NGS roles within the steering committee, and then also on the staff side, the newly created position for society and organization management. So again, a lot about establishing the appropriate conduits and the resources available to deliver messages back and forth.
Though it would be cool to communicate by owl. Just making sure y'all are awake.
Everyone might have eaten lunch, or at least the people on the East Coast might have eaten lunch very quickly during that 10-minute break and are still either chewing and swallowing or digesting. All right. Well, if there's no more discussion on the polls, we have just about 25 minutes to talk through an activity. And I think this comes up also via Slido. This will be a free text submission. So this is getting you guys to think about and calibrate your minds for that mouthpiece, that broadcaster role back to your organization.
You can add more than one response to this if you would like.
My response needs to be limited to 20 characters per line.
Okay. Sorry about that. If you can, I wasn't sure if there's a character limit, but if you can abbreviate maybe and then expand on the submission during the conversation, that will be helpful. And just generally, if I were responding to this as a delegate, I would think about my particular audience, so the organization that I represent, whether or not we have established communication vehicles or communication mechanisms already that people are used to getting information from. They're used to engaging with a newsletter or with a particular meeting, and that would be the first stop. I'd also think about whether there are gaps, whether those communication vehicles don't reach my intended audience or haven't been adopted by my intended audience, and think about how I might address that issue to get kind of this critical information that is of value to the entire organization back in kind of a regular cadence. So the board report, most popular, I'm assuming that obviously is normal, happens with a regular frequency. And just how would you use that? How would you incorporate your regular meetings with the board or regular reports to the board? Anybody that wants to share as a case study?
I would add it to the board agenda and then discuss what I've learned and get some input from other board members.
Yeah, I would as well. It would be a meeting with the board, at which time they would be the ones that would decide on how much information gets delegated out.
And I've already put this on my board agenda for our next meeting, and that we will be having a debrief of the whole week. And those of us who've attended various sessions will be reporting on what we've learned and what we think would be helpful.
Do most of your organizations have regular standing meetings? Are you meeting every month? Are you meeting every quarter? Do they occur on a fixed schedule?
Every month on Tuesday.
Every month on Tuesday.
My organization meets quarterly.
We meet monthly.
Once a month on Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
The second Wednesday of every month.
Yep. Yeah, so fixed schedule. Oh, go ahead.
We're the
I
third
was going to
Thursday
say
of
our
every
group,
month.
sorry. Our group meets every month, although sometimes not in the summertime. I'm in Florida. But each of the board members has areas of responsibility, and part of that monthly board meeting, we send in advance a monthly report on our activities. So that way all of the board members can keep track of what's happening in the various aspects on a monthly basis.
So for those that don't meet monthly, that they're on either a quarterly schedule or something maybe even less frequent than that, what other kind of communication vehicles do you have for messages that might need to be communicated ad hoc in between those meeting times? And that could actually happen in between monthly meetings.
We have committee meetings as needed, and we arrange those via email. And then we've been doing Zoom to have them.
We mostly communicate by email, and then when we have a special topic that looks like it's going to take a little longer, we'll do an extra meeting with a few of the board members.
Yes, we meet about 5 times a year unless something comes up and we need to schedule another meeting. Right now we're meeting by Zoom, and then in between the meetings we communicate through email.
Okay.
So it sounds like we all have a lot of different opportunities to be bringing back what we are discussing and engaging in during the delegate council meetings. And since we talked, this question is mostly about the workshop, but it's also going to be getting us to think about how do we communicate with our organizations throughout the year in what we're doing in the delegate council to make sure that our organization knows our role and the importance of our role with the delegate council and connecting.
Right, and eventually you're gonna, there might be information that will require conversations within your organization. You might have to solicit feedback or socialize a topic, and sometimes these things are going to be time sensitive. So, I think thinking about how to ensure that your organizational members know when you're reporting something back, that they need to read, digest, and respond. So setting expectations within your organization's leadership for what to do when they hear from you as the NGS delegate. Any other conversation or things that people are thinking about that are not on this list? Okay, there's a question in the chat about the need to be sure and separate officer reporting from delegate reporting to members. So if we could drill into that, is that kind of topic based? Are you suggesting that there might be conversations that are only appropriate for one group of people versus another?
As president of our organization, I send a lot of emails to our membership on various things that are happening, most of them in coordination with the other board members, but that's as the president of the organization. I don't know how many people here are actually presidents of the organization or a member, delegate, and so forth. So I think we have to be careful in how we communicate to the members, whether we're doing it as that delegate person from NGS to the members or as an organizational report, say from a board member or president or whatever.
I appreciate what Dean just said. I'm also a board president, and I've been sitting here thinking I'm going to write for our June newsletter, write just a little blurb on what went on as a delegate, in addition to my normal president's news letter that comes out with that each month. I think that would be helpful so that people know we're participating in a national organization.
Yeah, I think what you're getting at, both of you, is the different hats that we sometimes wear in different settings, and being able to say, right now I'm communicating as the delegate versus as the president. So kind of when we're dealing with emails and we're getting this information out. And
well,
also,
oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, Deb also hit on an important point here, is that making sure that we're effectively communicating to our organizations that we are an active member of this national organization.
I think that's something that's happened, Sam, for our organization, at least over the year of COVID, is since people are not able to come into the library, not able to attend sessions in person, all they get is the monthly newsletter for some people, and they may think our board is doing nothing. And I've been real clear every month to say, here is what your board has been doing for the past month related to OGS and where we're going.
Well, that triggered a question in my mind, and I'm curious how many organizations have identified the delegate as kind of an ex officio position, meaning the president of the organization will always be the delegate, or is it dependent on capacity? I'm interested to know how people have made those identifications and those delegate assignments.
In my case, it was kind of, yeah, I'll do it. I'll volunteer. We don't really have anything official, I guess, saying you will be the delegate and that position will always be the delegate. I think it's only fair probably to include various people as a delegate from time to time, just so they can get the experience.
I would agree. My board didn't say who should do this. I said, I will do that this year because I felt like it was appropriate, but I'd certainly love it, as Dean said, if someone else wanted to be the delegate, and I'm going to bring that topic up.
I just want to point out, because Nora made this point in the chat, you know, it's going to be a little bit different whether you're a genealogy society or if you're a library, archive, or museum, who that delegate is. In many of the libraries, it's the genealogy librarian. That person is the delegate. What's that person's responsibility to communicate with their library manager, or you know, an archivist who might want to speak to their archive executive director? Any thoughts on how those folks would report back?
We must not have any librarians.
There is at least one, I think.
Too shy to speak.
I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not a librarian. I'm the library genealogy associate working at a special collections history and genealogy library. Default delegate as the library genealogy associate. I will figure out how to report back as we work through this. I will be reporting back to my director and curator. We are the 3 full-time staff. So I will report to them, and as needed, we will share information with our flex staff and our board and commission.
I am the FGS delegate for many years, so I have become the NGS delegate, and I'm the president.
Yeah, in our group, I was the FGS delegate. We try not to have the president as our delegate, just so that the president can be the person that gathers all the information from all the board directors and then disseminates the information in an orderly fashion.
Yeah, so I think the considerations that are starting to kind of conceptualize in my head, there are a couple of different ones. Obviously, there's a capacity consideration for this role in relation to another volunteer role that you might have, or anything else going on in your life for that matter. Needing to be connected, obviously, appropriately to the greater network within your organization for efficiency's sake, and being able to kind of lead when there are issues that need to be discussed, feedback that needs to be gathered, and to be the appropriate mouthpiece back to NGS. So these are some things, considerations that will probably evolve over time within your specific organizations, and as you learn how to relate to NGS, as NGS learns how to relate to the delegates. So we've got about 12 or 13 minutes left, and we do have one more poll question. So if we can move on to poll question number 2.
Where's the value? I believe you were.
Great. So as these are coming in, a lot of these comments fit right into kind of the framework of the delegate council. Communication, information, networking, knowledge sharing, best practices. The framework of the delegate council and either the self-service resources that we have available through the website or those online communities that will be in development will facilitate a lot of that. And the delegate community, these platforms serve as kind of a convening ground for the delegate community to share amongst themselves, socialize amongst themselves, problem solve amongst themselves, share victories and successes amongst themselves. And a lot of that we hope will kind of germinate and cross-pollinate, and that's where you'll be able to derive a lot of your value, your community value, and a lot of your best practices and things like that. So it's a framework that exists with the Facebook group now. It's a framework that exists in this kind of workshop setting, even though this really is a kickoff for what it means to be a delegate. It will exist in those higher logic communities that will be developed over the summer. So making sure you understand how to interact and engage in those communities, I think will be paramount for your experience as a delegate and your ability to bring value back to your organization. Anybody want to expand on any of the expectations based on what they submitted in the poll?
Well, we know that NGS has a lot to offer us, and we want to make sure that the information that you have can be shared with our tiny little society of only 60 members.
Yep.
And that can then increase our membership and give us more reach to other societies and other information.
Yep. Yeah, and those tools, I mean, NGS will be will deliver on that kind of stuff, but also your peer group is a group that you can primarily learn from.
I'm glad to see us talking about this basically because I've been with our organization, probably about 5 or 6 years now. And really, this is the first time that I've become fully aware of FGS, NGS, and now the combination of the two and what the purpose and value can be of the organization. I don't recall if that was really communicated very well in past years from whoever may have been our delegates to anything as far as that goes. So this is good for me.
I think that's a great point. There is part of our role as delegates in communicating to not just our board, but to the organization at large, is reminding people that this exists, first off, and that there's a collaborative, we're going to talk about collaboration, we're going to talk about council coming up, but that there's this opportunity for us to connect to the wider genealogy community. Because I think a lot of times our members in our organizations are just doing their own genealogy, and their closest thing to connecting to the wider genealogy community is our organization. And this web of different member organizations kind of gives us that sense that we belong to a wider community. And with that wider community comes networking opportunities, comes new information, new ways of doing things, best practices, all the things that we're seeing here as benefits of being delegates.
Is there a logo or something that we can put on our websites to show that we are members, and we can put them in our newsletters and things to pass along to our members and potential members?
Yes, you will be getting that soon.
Great question.
Well, that also begs another question. Is every group a member of this organization?
Is every genealogy society, library, archive, museum?
Correct.
No, not everyone, but there are over 400 that are at this point. And we will obviously be looking to recruit more member organizations.
Do you have any idea how many more there might be out there?
We've heard all kinds of different numbers, but no, I don't think anyone has a truly accurate count. But there may be anywhere between, I've heard the low end 700 and the high end about 13 to 1500.
So y'all can help recruit those to get part. And not only to become member organizations, but to also make sure that they get a delegate to be part of the delegate council when they do become members. Because again, that'll widen that net.
So I have a question on what used to be RPAC. Will there be communication through NGS on what's happening from the advocacy standpoint on different states and what kind of legal or rules that are happening in each state as it comes to records?
Sure, I can address that. So the two lead organizations for what is now called the Records Preservation and Access Coalition are the National Genealogical Society and the International Association of Jewish Genealogical Societies, represented here today by Ken Bravo. Wave, Ken. And then there are a number of other organizations that form sort of a steering committee. But the coalition has been expanded, and any organization in the genealogy community, whether it's a library, archive, museum, or genealogy society, family association, can join the coalition. We do produce information coming from RPAC on the RPAC blog, and I'll put the link for that in the chat. And you can also find a link to the RPAC blog from the NGS website. So I'll put both of those links in for you.
All right, so we've got a couple minutes left. I did just want to try and provide a little bit of a recap. Then I'll just ask Lori if she's got what she needs to report back to the full group. If we recall, kind of during Sam's presentation, learning objectives were about how to communicate successes and challenges, the event sharing on the website and why that is important, different methods of communication. And again, some of these are evolving. You will influence how communities, online communities through Higher Logic will get configured, and that will be a primary communication vehicle for you all. We have the Facebook group that if you're not a part of it now, you're free to join and begin interacting and networking with that group. Working on the build out of access beyond potentially that account administrator to share events on the website and do a couple of other things. And then the importance of kind of just making sure you're ready, willing, and able to report back to your organizations when the information starts flowing from NGS, and then eventually when we will potentially solicit that from you. So this kickoff is obviously a lot of things to digest. And that'll be your first opportunity to serve as that conduit. Lori, any questions you have before we head back to the full group and ask for report outs?
The only thing was the exact name of the Jewish genealogical societies, but I think I just found it on the NGS website. So it's the International Association of Jewish Genealogical Societies.
That is correct.
Okay, great, thanks.
Am I correct in what I understood that the and I'm sorry, let me get the full name of it, but the Records and Access Coalition has to be separately joined?
We'll send out information, Tiffany, on how to do that.
Oh,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments before we get pulled back in to the main group?
I was just going to say that you're going to notice with the next presentation, it's going to build upon what we were just talking about. So there's going to be some, obviously, the overlap of these different topics.
Good conversation, everybody.